Welcome, everyone, to the very first episode of the 2026 Hawk Talk podcast, where we interview special guests, coaches, players from around Newtown High School. Today, our very first guest is Newtown Varsity head coach, Mr. Dan Farina. Coach, how are you doing today?
Good to see you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. We became the head coach of Newtown in 2023. So much history behind this program. How did you even get it first into football and eventually coaching? Because so far over your tenure with Newtown, you have been very, very successful with this program.
Yeah, I guess it started, I played, youth football and high school football, and then just decided that I wanted to coach. I don't think I could have been a D2 player at the school that I chose to go to, and I chose to go to Southern. And so, I decided to kind of jump into coaching. I had a guy who reached out to me and asked me if I would help him out. And so I helped out with the freshman football team and got hooked, and then ended up, making my way over to Wilton, and then, in New Canaan, and now I'm here today.
Yeah. Wilton, I feel like we play them a lot in scrimmages. You've played them a lot. Is it kind of, I wouldn't say hard, but is it kind of, hitting close to a little bit of a nostalgia feeling playing them every year in the preseason?
No, I think it's definitely cool to do it. You know what I mean? And it's but the kids are so far removed from where I was, and I was fortunate to coach guys like Brett Phillips, and so
you coached Drew Pine at New Canaan, right?
I coached Drew Pine at New Canaan, which was awesome experience for me, and he even taught me a lot. So that was cool. And no, I mean, it's just so far removed, but it's nice to see those guys that you did coach with, because some guys are still there, and when we go, when we do anything with New Canaan, whether it's Grip It and Rip It, or we didn't go to their team camp this year, but team camp, it's really nice to just see those guys, and you spend so much time with your coaching staff, and so those relationships are definitely special.
Yeah, throughout your tenure of coaching, is there something that made you realize this is something you really want to do for a while or for a long time, and to spend your time, putting your time and day into making this Newtown program better? Is there something that made you realize, maybe down the line or in the past, that made you realize that this is something you really want to do?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I've always wanted to coach. I mean, even when I was in high school playing, but I just think the relationships are so special, right? You're a former player of mine, right? But it's right, and you decide to step away to do this, and I think it's just the relationships, right? That you build in the community, that you build, player to player, coach to coach. Every team is very different, right? Year to year to year, and that's a special thing about high school football. So, no, I would just say the relationships are really important to me, and because they're important to me, I put in a lot of work, and my assistant coaches put in a lot of work, and I think it's just because at the end of the day, we want what's best for the kids, and and carrying those relationships, not just while you're playing for us, but into the future.
Right. Speaking of relationships, with coaching comes networking, comes connections, comes relationships. How important is building connections within high school football coaching?
Yeah, it's important. Whether you want to, go do like a team jamboree, or you want a joint practice, a guy that coached for me in my first year here, Ryan Pearson, he's the head coach over at Law. Right. And so, it's nice to get together with them and, do a joint practice and put your kids in situations where, they're able to feel a little pressure, and, but it's good to do that in a safe environment when you know the other guy wants the same thing. And so, but whether you want film, or whether you're looking for, some scheme or something, or hey, we do it this way, just, it's an ever learning process, I guess, so to say. Just keep going, and it's nice to have those guys to lean on. Right.
After your successful tenure as the New Canaan offensive coordinator, when you had your, I don't know if you had choice. Did you have choices where you wanted to go coach? Was there a couple spots available, or?
I mean, yeah, there were some spots available. I think, and that's just between me and whoever else. But But no, I think when I saw Newtown's job open, I had some other I was talking to some other places, and but when I saw Newtown, it was it was different for me when I saw Newtown.
What made it different?
Open.
Like what made you?
I mean,
what made Newtown somewhere where you want to stay and coach?
Yeah, just the tradition.
Right.
The fact that it's a one school, one town.
Yep.
We do have a really great football community here, and that's something that you can even see when you're at another school.
Yes.
I like the idea that. I heard good things about Matt Memley, who's the athletic director here, and I felt comfortable with him, and I'm Kim Longabuko. I felt comfortable with her, and so I decided to kind of throw my hat in the ring and go from there.
When you first became the head coach of this team, what kind of coach did you want to present yourself as, especially to the up and coming seniors who were coached their whole high school careers by Coach Pattison, Coach George, or mainly Coach Pattison, but what kind of first impression did you want to put on this team when you came here 3 years ago?
Yeah, two great coaches, Steve George and Bobby Pattison, and Bob Zito in there too. They really laid the foundation for this team to be successful, and that can't be lost. But no, I think I just wanted to present myself as who I am.
Right. Yeah.
I don't want to change who I am to kids. I think they see right through that. I'm super passionate, about the game of football.
Right, of course.
I'm super passionate about developing, kids into young men, and I'm passionate about winning as well. And just I think if those three things about me is kind of just who I am and who I wanted those kids to see me as.
Is there something that you've learned about being a head coach that you didn't really fully understand before taking the job?
I don't know, man. There's a lot of different things. I think.
I'm sure.
Probably one of them is just all the communication and stuff that I send. At times we over communicate. At times I'm sure we under communicate.
Yeah.
In terms of where we got to be and stuff like that. But no, it was pretty much what I expected. I mean, I had, two really great mentors, and Bruce Cunningham, who's actually a coach at Greenwich now, and just, Lou Marinelli. I mean, so I was really fortunate to see those two guys, be head coaches and work closely with them, and then, have the tools in the toolbox to become one myself.
Yep. With football coaching comes being a mentor, comes being a close figure for some players. What do you want your players to take away from you after graduating high school, after finishing the program, to take with their life beyond football?
Yeah, I mean, we touched on it before. I think relationships.
Right. Yeah.
They like this game, your relationships are very different in this game than in any other sport.
Right.
And just, I think, having those people in your corner and knowing you have those people in your corner and developing those lifelong friendships, Coach Hank, right? Like he's one of my best friends from high school. And,
right. Yeah.
And, he's the first guy who's willing to do anything that it takes to make this team better.
Right.
And, so just developing those relationships and understanding that you're going to have them for a life, not just for a period of time. And I think, just the fact of hard work, like, football's not easy. Like waking up,
absolutely.
Waking up at 5:30 a.m. to get to a 6:30 lift in the summer is not easy. It's,
right. Yeah.
Going to a full padded practice, every single day, it's not easy. Right. And so just understanding that you can do hard things and they're worth it.
Newtown enters most seasons with expectations to compete. Do you take that pressure on with, positivity? Like, do you embrace the pressure every year with Newtown's expectations to be able to compete every year?
Yeah, I think we're I think we work to be that.
Yes, absolutely.
And I wouldn't want it to be anything else.
Right.
I wouldn't want to come in here and say, well, it'd be great if we win 2 games. I mean, listen, we try to go 1-0 every week, and
right. Yeah.
And you go from there. No, but I think that pressure,
right.
It definitely helps.
Is there anything about that pressure that, kind of, how do you prevent for your players? How do you prevent pressure and expectations from becoming a distraction during the season?
I mean, we talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think if you talk about it, if you talk about anything, you
Right,
know,
yeah,
and you're open about it, I think it's easier. You know, we do have a high expectation in this town, but
yes.
that's because of, you know, the teams previous to these teams, and you know, and that, you know, that state championship team, right? Like
Yep.
that's, you know, that's where these kids want to be, and so you know, you got to work hard to get there, right? It doesn't just happen, and it's a process.
Yes.
And no, I think, you know, and we talk about it, but then again, like, you got to play loose, you know,
Right,
and you
yeah.
got to go and you got to execute, and
Right.
you got to do the same thing you've been doing since you're in third grade. It's just at a different level now.
Right. With being the head coach of Newtown football, like I said, we discussed before, comes with a lot of pressure. Is there anything that people sitting in the stands on Friday nights don't see or don't understand about being a head coach of a varsity football team?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I would probably say is just, you know, how much
Right.
our coaches care about our kids,
Right,
and,
yeah.
and how hard they work just to make them a little bit better each day. You know, I mean, I don't really see my wife in football season,
Right.
and a lot of our coaches don't see their families, and I think that's easily lost.
Yeah, a lot of dedicated time.
Yeah, and you know, the film and the meetings and the practice, and you know, and these guys have full-time jobs, right? You know,
Right, yep.
you know, I work in the school system, and you know, I'm fortunate to be able to, you know, get out of here at 2:45, and
Yep.
you know, but most of our coaches are going, you know, from a 9 to 5, like a, you know, 9 to 3, they're cutting out early, and
Right,
then
yep.
and then coming to football practice, and then
Right.
you know, guys like Connor Hughes are staying for youth football,
Yep.
and you know, just the sacrifice that those guys put in, and then, you know, I also think the sacrifice that our kids put in, you
Right,
know,
yeah,
and,
of course.
and watching film, and lifting in the season,
Right,
and,
yep.
and taking care of their bodies,
Yep.
and you know, understanding when it's a bump and a bruise, and when it's an injury, and
Right, yep.
you know, the meetings that we have, you know, there's a lot of things, and then I think there's a lot of things that I wish, you know, the other people in the stands, you know, understood about our
Right.
parents,
Of course,
and
yep.
that our parents are extremely supportive, that
Yep.
that our parents are the first people to jump if we need
course.
anything.
Yep.
You know, Rich Guman, who's our booster club president, is the best guy in the planet. You know, anything we need, you know, he makes sure that we get it. And so it takes a village, and,
Right, yep,
and I
of course.
think when you have the right people, you know, in that village,
Yep.
then it becomes really easy, and it becomes second nature, and then you're able to see that success on the field.
Right. You know, staying on the point on the field, what does, and again, it doesn't necessarily have to be on the field, what does a great Newtown football player look like to you? Not necessarily, you know, talent, it could be talent as well, but, you know, characteristics,
Yeah.
traits, like what is a great Newtown football player to you?
Yeah, I think that when we talk about 3 pillars
Yep.
every single day in our meeting room, and that's attitude, right? And
Yep.
whether that's, you know, body language and energy, you know, we talk about communication, you know, whether it's on or off the field, right?
Right,
And we talk about physicality.
Yep.
You know, and I think when we have those 3 things in every single player, then I think we're going to be in a pretty good spot, and
Right.
you know, team to team to team. And then I think it's also just being being a member of the community that
Yep.
pitches in and goes to our events, and you know, spreads the mulch, and
Right, yep.
and you know, volunteers, you know, wherever.
Yep.
You know, we do so many things, planting the flags on
Yep.
you know, Memorial Day, and
Yes.
and I think it's someone who's proud to be,
Right.
you know, a
To
Newtown football
represent, yep.
player, and you know, not somebody who
Playing just to wear the jersey.
yeah, and I don't think we have many of,
Yeah.
of those kids. I think everybody
Right.
is proud to play, and
Yeah.
and they should be proud.
Right. You know, if seniors, you know, probably the backbone of the team, or the most important part of the team. You know, seniors. How important are seniors to build the culture for Newtown football every single year, to lead the team? Every
Yeah,
year?
I mean, I think you got to kind of go backwards, and you know, seniors were once sophomores,
Right, yep.
And so they saw a team, and whatever you did that year, and whatever your message was,
Yep.
they kind of soaked it in without, you know, being really the guys on the field.
Right. Yep. Of course.
And then they did it their junior years, and hopefully that you have more on the field, right? And then now they're seniors, and they're at, you know, the beginning of the end of their career,
Right.
you know, here, and I think it's just their leadership, right?
Right.
Their experience. They've seen things, right?
Yep.
They've they've seen the practice schedule, they've seen the way we lift, and they can kind of take those younger guys under their wing, just like guys did before them.
Right, of course.
You know, and so yeah, the senior class is basically an extension of the coaching staff for sure.
Right. You know, if speaking of leaders, you know, who has emerged so far as this season as being a very great vocal leader, someone who is not afraid to hold someone accountable, hold themselves accountable, someone who is that player this year, or multiple players that you think this year?
Yeah, I mean, our 5 captains, I think, are doing an excellent job in that. Yes. You know, they're all pretty much defensive players, and so that's kind of hard to maybe connect to the offensive side. But our quarterback is doing a really good job of being vocal and being a leader and being someone who's stepping up in his first year.
Right.
But I mean, our leadership from our captains and really our entire senior class has been, you know, really refreshing and really great to see. And you know, they're making guys, you know, work hard and run through the line and finish the rep. And so they're kind of policing themselves, which is, excuse me, which way you want to say?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, now I want to dive into the mind of a head coach, like during practice, starting with, you know, all before the practice, the 2-hour practice, before the weightlifting, comes the team meetings, comes the film. When you turn on film, what is the first thing that you're looking for when you're scouting an opponent?
When I'm scouting an opponent, it's probably, you know, just formationally, right? Like I'll watch it through once, and I'll just kind of see, you know, what they kind of do, and then I'll watch it through a second time where it's, you know, now I'm labeling it, you know, more scheme.
Right. Yep.
And then, you know, I'll break it down into, you know, categories and things like that, and just, you know, what are they doing out of 3x1? What are they doing out of 2x2? What are they doing? And then we'll go situations, right? So that's a little bit later in the week. That's probably like, you know, Monday for me. And you know, what are they doing on third down? What do they like to do on third down? Is this team a blitz heavy team on third down? Is this team going to empty you out on third down, right? So, you know, just all different things. And then, you know, also the special teams, right? Like, how are they doing this? What do they like to do? Do they like to bring it to their sideline? You know, just a lot of different things. And then, you know, all of our coaches have, you know, their own responsibilities that they get done. Right.
You know, scouting goes a long way, I think, like for teams. It can make or break your week. You know, if a team comes out, runs an offensive scheme that you haven't seen on film before, how do you adjust to that? Like, is there something that you can do? Like, let's say the usual offense, 2x2, right? And that's all you've seen on film so far. The next thing you know, it's 3rd and 7. Trips left. Something like that. Let's say they run a screen that you haven't seen before. Is there something that are you able to see that, or if you are able to see that, what is your first instinct to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think our kids are, you know, they're prepared, right? And so, you know, when we practice, we won't just practice against what that opponent's going to do, right? We're going to throw 3 or 4 wrinkles in there that you know, we think they might have. So, but again, like that's like your base learning, you know, and that's what camp is for, right? That's what these last, you know, week and a half right now have been for, is to play your, you know, in our opinion, play your base defense and be able to line up to anything and adjust anything. And when you have guys in the field, you know, like we have defensively, and we're pretty experienced, and so, you know, those guys can make those checks, and you know, also when they come off the field, like, hey, you know, they're doing this, they're trying to get this, and you know, Steve Neugebauer is our defensive coordinator, K Long, you know, Kevin Long is our, you know, DB coach, Connor Hughes, and you know, Chris Bougie, and you know, Bob Mason, and they just do a great job of you know, kind of adjusting the kids that within what we do, and not being, you know, too crazy and outside the box, but you know, no, I think we adjust pretty well, and offensively, right? I think we do a really good job of what are they giving us, and what are they giving us, but what do we want to take, and how do we get there? So, no, I'm happy with the way that we adjust, but it comes down to that base, that base teaching.
Of course. So before we wrap up this segment here on Hawk Talk, we are going to do our new tradition for every single episode called the 100-yard dash, at least for the football season. We might change it for basketball, other sports that relate to that. 100-yard dash, some rapid fire fun questions for Coach Farina here. First one, What is your favorite football movie or sports movie in general?
Man, that's a great question. I'm not much of a movie guy.
Yeah.
But man, my favorite football movie. I mean, Remember the Titans is
Right,
probably
yeah.
a classic
Yeah,
one.
classic.
Division 3 is also hysterical.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd probably say one of those.
Morning practice or night practice?
Yeah, I love morning practice. Morning practice
Yeah.
is hard to prepare for, because you have to get work done at night, and
Right,
then,
yep.
we got to get up and at 'em. But I like the morning practices.
Yeah.
We will do one night practice,
Yep.
a year probably, or 2 night practices. But I like the morning a little bit better. It
Yep.
gets the kids in. They make better decisions at night. It
Yep.
gets them out, but it's harder to prepare for in terms of what
Yep.
we have to get done.
Little bit of a controversial question because some people have split views on this: grass or turf fields.
I'm a turf guy.
Yeah.
I mean, we just had our youth jamboree
Yep.
on Sunday, and it was up in Shelton. And after the rain, it was like all mud.
Yeah, right.
And listen, I mean, I like that old school football, but
Yeah.
give me the turf probably.
Best football weather. Like, what's the ideal game day for you?
I mean, probably 70 degrees, overcast, a little bit of light mist or a light breeze. That's my just favorite weather in general, so that's what I'm going with.
What is if you have one? Like, what is your favorite? Do you have a pregame meal? If so, what is it?
I used to eat Nutella
Yeah.
before games at night, but I broke that superstition. I realized it probably wasn't the healthiest for me, so broke that superstition. But no, I don't really have like I tried to get away from all my
Right, yeah.
superstitions, so no, I don't really have like a pregame meal.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're playing on a Saturday, probably like bacon, egg, and cheese in the
Right,
morning.
yeah.
But it's classic.
What's the most underrated position in football? Do you think doesn't get enough recognition?
Yeah, center.
Center.
I mean,
Yeah, of
people
course, yeah.
recognize it, but the center and just because he's touching the ball every single play, and
Yeah.
and he's got to communicate the front, or for us, it's probably our whip,
Yep.
who's
Right.
or our new whip, who's into the boundary, and there doesn't look like a lot of space there, but
Right.
he's got to communicate the whole deal. So. For us, probably those 2 positions.
College football or NFL, and what is your favorite team from each or?
Yeah, I don't have a favorite NFL team.
Okay.
And I know you're a big Jet fan.
Yes, unfortunately.
And so is Coach Hank and Coach Wilkin.
Yep.
But no, I don't have a favorite NFL team.
Okay.
For me, Sundays is traditionally
Right.
like a 3 TV system.
Right, yep.
I'm rocking like Red Zone on one of them.
Right. Yep.
Probably a random game on another, but it's really about us on Sundays for
Right,
me.
yep.
And Saturdays, probably more the college football.
Yep.
Probably more of a college football fan. But again, like we're doing so much, game prepping to get ready for us. And so like Red Zone is probably the most NFL that I do on Sundays.
All right, 2 more here. We have the second to last one. What is your favorite part about a Friday night?
Just the crowd. I think the crowd is awesome.
Yeah.
I think our crowd really brings it every night. And just they pack the stands,
Right,
and now with our games at 6:30, they got to get there a little bit earlier. So here's a plug for that. But no, I just love the energy our crowd has, and when our kids run down that hill, I know that they know the school's behind them, and
Right.
and we're ready to rock.
All right, last one here. What is your message to Newtown as we get ready for the 2026 football season?
Yeah, games are at 6:30. Get there early. And no, I think let's just have obviously the best season that we possibly can.
Yep.
We start off the year with 2 home games and 2 tough games, 2 state playoff teams from last year. So,
Right.
Yeah, let's bring it. Let's get loud and let's get behind these guys.
You heard it from the man himself, Dan Farina, first guest today on the Hawk Talk podcast. Coach, thank you so much for joining me. It was
Thanks,
a pleasure to have you. Again, thank you so much all for tuning into this episode of Hawk Talk. We'll be filming more podcasts very, very soon. You can catch them over on the Newtown Sports Network on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. Newtown Sports Network on every single platform. We are going to be streaming every single home game of the Newtown varsity football team this year, and some away games as well. Definitely massive. We will be there for that for sure. Again, Coach, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a great day, and good luck to the team as they prepare for Ridgefield and the the scrimmage tonight against Prep, and New Fairfield September 10th, just 15 days away.
Thursday night.
Thursday night. That is a
Thank you,
Thursday
Jack.
night. No problem, Coach. Have a great day.